Hey everyone, quick little announcement here from Fishing the DMV. Our Weekend Warrior Club membership on Patreon is nearly full. There are only 10. That's right, only 10 spots still available. Once these spots are gone, they're gone, and I'll be closing the club to any new members until 2026. At that point, you can try to join again, but it'll be at a higher rate. So get your rates locked in now, and you'll gain access to our 5 fishing tournaments each year for Patreon members only, 5% off your orders to Jake's Bait and Tackle, 10% off your order to Tiger Crankbaits, 10% off your orders to Catoctin Creek Rods. You'll gain access to our private Facebook group community, loads of members only content, and of course, ad-free, commercial-free episodes of the show. You get all this for $6 a month, which is less than a pack of Cincos or a Jackhammer Chatterbait. Lock in these rates now because in 2026, I'm going to be increasing the rate to new members. And again, I'll give you an extra one here. I'll give you 8% off if you buy the membership for the year. So that'll be $66 for all of this value. There are only a few spots left, so hurry up and check out the link in the episode description. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Fishing the DMV. I'm your host, Thomas Ahrens. Today, I am with a Patreon member, but also the winner of the first VA Bass Nation Kayak Series event. And this was on an interesting body of water. And I just want to let this guy kind of tell the tale of everything. Tyler, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, was this your first year fishing with this group? Like, how did this whole year and everything transpire?
So this is the first year for the Virginia Kayak Bass Nation Series. I've been kayak fishing since about 2017. I started here in one of our little local clubs, the Tidewater Kayak Anglers Association, and fished the Virginia Kayak Trail, which is no longer a trail anymore, and then got on the Kayak Bass Team Series, which is a kayak bass fishing, but a team format style. And being that there wasn't a local club anymore, and the Virginia Kayak Bass Nation Series got going, I thought it'd be a good idea just to kind of get into that series.
Have you had any experience on these bodies of water? If you guys don't know, for this first event, it was Briery Creek and then Sandy River Reservoir. Is that how you say it?
Sandy River Reservoir, yes. So I fished Sandy. There's bodies of water about 2 hours and 15 minutes from my house. So it's not like you can just go over there, for a couple of hours from where I live and fish. So you really got to devote the day to go over there and just spend the day. I've fished Sandy probably 6 or 8 times. And I spent half a day on Briery just pre-fishing Monday. I never fished Briery, only Sandy. And Monday was pretty abysmal. I didn't get bit on either lake on Monday. Which was kind of that first day of the warming trend last week. So it was kind of a bad day. I've never been to Sandy. In the 6 or 8 times I've been there, I've never been there and not caught at least 1 5-pounder in those trips. I mean, that place just has them, and it's good fishing.
How did you pick? I mean, that's what's so cool about these multi-lake events that I like is in a regular event, you got to pick out your starting place, but there's one extra layer here where you have to pick the lake, then pick where you're going to start on that lake.
Right. So, like I said, I fished Briery a half a day Monday. That was my first day on Briery ever. And I just went there because what I had fished, my historical knowledge on Sandy wasn't doing anything for me. I'm like, well, let's go see what the water clarity is. I mainly wanted to go see the water clarity because Monday it was really dirty on Sandy. I mean, it was just chocolate milk muddy. So I mainly just wanted to go to Briery to see if I'd never been there. And I wanted to see if the water clarity was any better. And it was about the same. So I went back Thursday, which is kind of about the 4th day of the warming trend. And we're, coming up on the full moon last week. So I knew these fish were going to be moving up shallow in that pre-spawn mode with that full moon. And Thursday, the water had probably warmed up 4 to 5 degrees from Monday when I was there. Because we had like that 7-degree weather like Tuesday and Wednesday, and no rain. So that water was really warming up, and it was staying warm at night. And the fish, I really found them. They moved up shallow on Thursday, and I got on a really specific pattern that when I could duplicate it, I moved around the lake. I spent most of the day Thursday not even really fishing. Once I caught a few fish on a specific pattern, I moved around to multiple areas of the lake and just tried to duplicate that pattern. And pretty much everywhere I went, I was pretty much able to call my shot and get bit. So I was like, okay, I know what they're doing now, and I'm just going to kind of leave these fish alone and do something else.
Now, for people that don't know, what kind of kayak do you have, and are you running live scope?
So I have a fish out of a Hobie Outback, and I just have your standard, just Garmin chart plotter with regular 2D sonar, your charts and side scan and down imaging. The way my kayak's set up, I don't have a spot lock trolling motor on it, and so I really believe that you just have to be you have to have that spot lock for live scope to be effective. And I've never fished. I fished it a little bit, and it's just not what I know. So I'm comfortable fishing shallow. I'm just comfortable fishing what I believe my strengths are, and it's paid good dividends for me. And I've been very successful, even fishing against the guys that have the live scope.
So after Thursday, you like what you're seeing. What kind of water temperatures are you seeing leading up to Saturday?
So when I left Thursday, the water had got up to like 56. It was about 50 when I got there on Thursday morning. It was like 56 in the afternoon when I left.
Wow. That's crazy, man. How far, just for people that have context, how far south is this from Lake Anna? Is it 50 miles, 30, 100, just roughly?
It's probably 50 miles. It's pretty much dead central Virginia, Farmville area. So it's pretty much due east, maybe a little bit south of Richmond.
Dude, spring is definitely coming. That's crazy that the water temperature is that high right now. So it sounds like practice going into Friday, then you feel pretty confident with what you found.
Yeah, I didn't even go over there Friday. I purposely went over there on Thursday, so I just to kind of leave my fish alone for Friday and just kind of spent that day just getting my tackle ready and stuff at home, and just kind of getting ready for Saturday. And I didn't need to go over there and fish anymore because I knew what I had, and it was either going to be a home run or strikeout. So.
With that said, just to make sure we really paint this picture, how many people were in this tournament that would be picking between these two lakes?
So for the first tournament, we actually had 43 show up, which is a really good turnout.
Nice.
There were people from Maryland, West Virginia, North Carolina, of course, Virginia. There was several people from like far southwest Virginia, Galax area. It's a really good turnout for the first Virginia Bass Nation Kayak Series tournament. Yeah,
and I think part of it is too, I would like to think, the fisheries you guys picked. Just Briery and Sandy, man, those are two heavy hitters in Virginia, and that's a really cool place that if you're a diehard angler, let alone a kayak angler, it's kind of cool to be like, oh, I could fish a tournament at one of these places. That's badass.
Yeah, kind of the whole reason the areas that were picked is just because there are some local clubs. There's some local clubs in Tidewater, local clubs in Northern Virginia. You have NVKBA, and then you have River Smallies, which is another club. And I think they just wanted to kind of give everyone an opportunity, move the tournaments around the state. So, if you were a smallmouth fisherman and you wanted to fish the series, all the tournaments went on largemouth bodies of water. And so it just kind of gives everyone an opportunity to fish their strengths and fish make some places around the state that they would maybe fish otherwise.
That's so cool. So a stacked field, two lakes. When you show up to the ramp Saturday, did you feel like you picked the right lake? Was it really just insanely busy, just trying to get your kayak on the water, or did you have the lake to yourself?
So when I got there, pretty much most of the field had picked sandy because that's where it's at. Like that's where it's going on. That's where the big fish are. I'm not saying Briery doesn't have them because it certainly does, but Briery's a lot of standing timber and a lot of the lake, and it's just hard. It's a hard lake to fish, and sandy just sets up more for my style of fishing. And like I said, I had a good practice over there on Thursday, and I had a lot of historical knowledge from previously fishing that lake. So that's kind of why I decided to go to sandy Saturday.
So when does it start happening? Was it really quick in the morning, or was it really a grind?
So when I got there Saturday morning, I had two areas of the lake that I had pretty much caught most of my fish in practice. And ironically, my first cast in practice, I actually caught a fish on Thursday. It was a 21 incher on my very first cast.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It was right by and I was like, after blanking on Monday, I was like, this is awesome. First cast catch like a 5-pounder. And I didn't even get to fish that spot tournament day because there was someone there all the time. Every time I went by that spot, there was either another kayaker or just a recreational person there, just fun fishing. But so Saturday morning, I kind of started out. I went to where I'd caught the most fish in practice, and I noticed as soon as I got my boat in the water temp was like 47. So it was, that's like a 9-degree, temperature swing from Thursday, and it was pretty much overcast and foggy, and I figured the fish would still be up shallow with that full moon, and so I went up to where I had caught them in practice, and I think in the first 15 minutes I caught 2, and I think the first fish I got was like a 17 and a half, which was a good one, and I caught like an 18-inch fish, and all our fish are by length, not weight, so I caught like an 18 in practice off this one little spot. And so I get there Saturday morning and make a few casts at the spot and nothing, with what I've been catching on, which was a spinnerbait. I was on a spinnerbait bite, and which is a very common spring pattern, just a shallow spinnerbait bite. That's all it was. Nothing super complicated about it, and so nothing on my spinnerbait. And a lot of times some people may just move on from that spot and the fish isn't here and just move on. But I kind of have a rotation of baits that I'll go through, and I'll throw different baits at the same spot. And a lot of times you won't get bit on one, but as soon as you throw the other bait up there, you'll get bit sometimes. And that's what I did Saturday, and I threw a big swim bait up there on this spot, and had a 22-inch fish just come wreck my swim bait. And so that was like the first 20 minutes of the tournament. I've got a 22, fish was 22 inches. And so I had a 22 and a like 17 and a half in the first like 15 minutes of the tournament.
Does that calm you down or hype you up when you have that kind of success so early in the day?
To me, it just solidified that what I was doing was right. And if it's the first 15 minutes and I've got 2 and 2 really good ones, basically, that's a 19-inch average right there for those 2 fish. If you think about just your average, you try to think in averages, kind of fish, thinking those numbers. And so I knew I needed 3 more, and I figured it was probably going to take, 100. I was thinking it was going to take probably 100, 101, 102 inches, which would be, 5 20-plus inch fish. And Sandy's got plenty 23, 24, 25-inch fish in it. No way did I think that a 22-inch fish was going to hold up for big fish all day, being that I just caught one in the first 15 minutes. So kind of worked that area, and ended up getting one more. I think it was a 18 and a half up there, which was another quality fish in that area. There were 2 other anglers up there, and they did a really good job. I think we shared the water very well. And that's one thing I've seen in this kayak fishing is everyone's very respectful of each other. And like I said, I've been doing this since like 2017, fishing these kayak tournaments, and I've never once had a bad encounter with another kayak angler who you're fishing against in a tournament. I think we each give everyone that good distance, and just respect each other's water. And those 2 guys, they each caught fish, and so I knew there were fish out there. I'd caught 3. I saw them each catch a fish, so I knew, and they were quality fish. So I knew we were in a good area, and if we just kind of worked together, and we'd all catch fish. But after the first like 30, 40 minutes, the bite just turned off. It was like flipping a switch, and so then it got really tough. And I fished in that same area where I started for probably the first 4 hours of the tournament. So I pretty much spent half the day, almost half the day up there in that spot, and didn't get another bite. And so at this point, it seems like the bite's kind of turned off, and I found another little area in practice. that was at the complete other opposite end of the lake. So in a kayak, that takes you, it's about a 45-minute pedal, no motor on my kayak. So it took me about 45 minutes.
Oof. Wow.
So you're losing, that's 45 minutes, that you're losing right there. You're not in a bass boat where you can just fire up and run up there in 5 minutes, So you've really got to, the old saying is you don't leave fish to find fish. But, it was, in my opinion, it had died right there. And I knew that I caught other fish at the other end of the lake. So I made that run up there, and I hadn't been up there 20 minutes. And kind of working this weed edge with my spinnerbait again. And I caught a 19-inch bass up there in about the first 15 minutes after I got up there. So I was like, so it made me feel good about making that run up there and, kind of losing that little bit of time that I did to make that run. So I had 4. That gave me 4 for the day. And, I needed one more fish. So kept fishing up there, and it got just kind of that area.
What time are we at?
This is probably like 1 o'clock in the afternoon by now. So 12:30, 1 o'clock. So tournament's over at 3:30, 7:30 to 3:30. So got 2 hours left.
Are you nervous?
I was starting to get nervous, but I felt better because I was watching the leaderboard, because in our series, or in kayak fishing in general, you can pretty much see what everybody has if they're uploading their fish. Now, they may hold a fish and not upload it to the app that we use, but so you can see where you are in relation to the rest of the field. So I could see that only a few people had a limit, and it was very tough fishing. It wasn't like Thursday when I left them, where they were just wide open and really on fire. Thursday had slowed down, or Saturday had slowed down a lot from Thursday when I was last there. So I knew it was fishing tough for everyone. So I knew if I had 4 that I would be able to hopefully get one more in the last couple hours of the tournament. And by this time, like I said, most of the field was there. So you're fishing behind people. You're fishing water that's already been fished maybe 3 or 4 times already by other fishermen.
Interesting.
I pulled up on one spot, and it was kind of three large trees that had kind of blowed down together on the main lake, and threw my swim bait up there again, and had a fish probably 3 or 4 pounds come up and just tag the swim bait, but didn't eat it, so missed that fish, and that would have been number 5. So I knew I was still on fish. I knew I was still doing the right thing because I was still getting bit, and I just you got to have a positive mindset when you're fishing these tournaments, and just that you're doing the right thing, and you just keep putting the time in, and you'll run into that fish. And I think I went like another 100 yards down the bank from where I missed that nice fish, and ended up getting a 17 1/4. So that was my last fish. That was my limit for the day, and I think that brought me up to like 94 1/4 inches or something for five fish.
Wow.
And second place, I think, was like 92 at the time. So, but we both had like 17-inch fish, and with the quality of fish that are in that lake, you catch another 20 or 21, 22-inch fish, and that's a 5-inch coal potentially. So it's not over to the last cast.
Why the spinnerbait? A lot of times people throw crankbaits, chatterbaits are probably the hottest they've ever been in popularity. A spinnerbait's almost old school.
Yeah, I just try to think outside the box. I threw a chatterbait a little bit. I had one tied on, jackhammer. I've caught a lot of fish on jackhammer. It's a really good bait. The water was really, really still muddy. And what I was doing, like I said, the water temp was 47. So, it was like, it only got up to like 51, 52 by the end of the day. The sun never came out. It was foggy, overcast all day. And I got a really slow, like a 6:2 to 1 gear ratio reel. And I was just throwing a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait with a really large Colorado, and then like a medium sized Indiana blade on it, and just really just fishing that thing really slow, tight to the cover. Like I said, in shallow water, and that's where those fish were holding at. It was so crazy because there's a lot of standing timber and stumps in that lake. And in all of my practice and tournament, I never caught a single fish off any cover that was vertical in the water column. It had to be laying down, it had to be horizontal, and it had to be touching the bank. If it wasn't touching the bank, there was not a fish on it.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know if it was just getting more heat, from the sun, just catching that radiant heat, and the fish were relating to that. But there's a lot of falling down logs that are, offshore, 50 feet, 100 feet, on shallow flats in there. And I fished most of those places and never got bit. It had to be on the bank. Some of the fish that I caught, their backs were coming out of the water when they were eating that spinnerbait. It was that shallow.
I can't believe the fish were that far up this time of year.
Yeah, they were up.
Did you think they would be that shallow going into it? Like, did you have preconceived notions?
Well, just based upon my history, like knowing, the pre-spawn of the fish, especially your larger fish, they're going to be moving up. They're going to be looking for their places to spawn. When the water gets really muddy like it was, the fish will also get shallow, and then they'll relate to that cover. So just kind of use some of my, historical knowledge, over the years of fishing, and just kind of what they do other places when the water's dirty. And, kind of had a good warming trend. So we had all week of good warm weather. So that water was warming up the whole week. And then on the full moon with the fish, coming up, the fish are going to be moving up on that full moon that we had coming up, getting ready to spawn. So they're not spawning yet, but that's why that swim bait is so good, because those fish are up there getting ready to spawn, and they're looking for for one big meal. And the only fish that I caught on it, like I said, that day was at 22. So that ended up being the big fish in the tournament.
That's all you needed, though. That's all you need is that one bite,
There was one other 22-inch fish caught, but in the Bass Nation, it goes back to your to your second big fish, which is the tiebreaker. And unfortunately, that gentleman only had that 122, which is still a great fish. I wouldn't complain about catching a 22-inch fish, but so it fell back to your second big fish. So that's the tiebreaker.
Did you catch it on a mag draft style swim bait or a weedless style?
Mag draft. Yeah.
What is your rod setup with that?
So I throw the 8-inch primarily.
Damn. Dude.
I don't even.
Wow.
I throw the 8-inch mag draft. I'm throwing that on a 710 St. Croix, their swim bait rod, with the 6:1 gear ratio is what I throw that on. Okay. And then I just throw straight 20-pound mono is what I throw on that.
Mono? Why mono?
Mono. I tried when I first got into swim bait fishing. I was doing the old school like braid to like fluorocarbon, and I lost a couple fish, like big fish, when I first started doing it, because there's no stretch. Braid and fluorocarbon, there's very little stretch, and when you're targeting, say 5+ pound fish on average, you need that mono to stretch when you set the hook. You don't want to have no stretch. You need that little bit of give in mono. And ever since I've gone to mono, I haven't lost a fish from a hook set. So I think it's really worked well for me.
I think mono gets a bad rap because as soon as you say mono, for some people, it's like they think like the 1960s. And it's come actually a long way, the technology for the mono and the copy polymers and things like that. Or we've just been marketed to hell and back with fluorocarbon as you just always have to do that.
I don't get super fancy. I just throw Berkeley big game or Trilene big game. That's what I throw, 20 pound. And it works.
I wish I had your confidence in that. So when you were in the car and you had some time behind the steering wheel and you got to reflect, what is something that you look back on at this event?
I just look back on just, when I was, it's like I said, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes there. So the whole way over there, I'm thinking because again, like I said, Thursday morning, I caught a fish with inside of the boat ramp. It was 21 inches. So you could launch from the boat ramp at 7 a.m., but you couldn't start fishing until 7:30. So do I use that time? Do I just sit at the boat ramp for 30 minutes and start on the spot where I caught the 21 incher? Or do I use that 30 minutes to go up the lake where I caught those fish in practice and, use that free time basically before the tournament starts to travel to a spot, right? So that's what I did. I used that 30 minutes to travel to my first spot. It took me about 20 minutes to pedal up there where I started at. So, again, I caught fish there in practice, and that's kind of what I decided I was going to do tournament morning. But I'm glad I made that decision because that's where the fish were, and that's where I ended up catching that 22. So just there's so many decisions that you can make, like in these tournaments, and like after I caught those first three, like, do I waste 30, 45 minutes of the day to go to the complete other end of the lake? Because that's 45 minutes that your line's not in the water. So do you give that time up?
Yeah.
Do you give that time up to make a move, or do you just sit here where you haven't got a bite for the last 2 hours and hopefully it turns on before the end of the day?
And that's what I just absolutely adore about fishing is it's all these little micro decisions that you have to make throughout the day.
Right.
And especially when you're in a kayak, there's just two things you have to, in your situation, you have to pedal, and then you have to pick the lake. And I kind of like that. It's that's what makes it so wonderful. And something else you mentioned too, just to circle back to it, it just feels like anglers in a kayaking, it's okay to fish next to each other way more than bass boats. And I'm assuming it's this unwritten rule that like, hey, we're all in kayaks. We don't have a 250. We're limited in range.
Right.
Because I've bumped into people in MVKBA events on Nye Reservoir, on Mooney. It's like there's just more of we get it factor versus if you were in a bass boat, people would be throwing fists real quick if you were the same distance away.
Well, where I started at, like I said, there were two other anglers up there, and I had kind of just one little stretch, really kind of maybe a 200-yard stretch of where I thought they were. And so I kind of started at the beginning of that, and another angler went in front of me, probably like 100 yards, maybe 150 yards in front of me, kind of towards that area that I was going to fish. And I was kind of concerned when I saw that, just because I knew that's where I'd caught the fish at. But once I saw I was fishing on the bank, they were fishing more in the middle or offshore. And so once I saw the way they were fishing, they never came to the bank. So we kind of had that water separated where I was fishing up close to the bank. They were fishing a little bit offshore. I never fished his water. He never fished my water. And even that little area, like I said, he caught fish, I caught fish. And, he literally stopped within 50 yards of where I caught that 22 incher. And so I was glad that fish was still there when I got there.
Dude, that is a crazy story. And I didn't even ask you this to begin with, but what got you into kayak fishing?
So I've been fishing pretty much my whole life. Got my first rod and reel the day I came home from the hospital as a baby.
Oh, that's cool.
Little Snoopy rod, and got my lifetime hunting fishing license when I turned a year old. And my family has fished. That's what we do. My dad's run multiple bass clubs, bass boat stuff. So I grew up fishing tournaments with him, more bass boat stuff. And my parents live out of state, so I don't get to fish, with my dad as much as I used to. And, he and I used to fish a lot together in tournaments and stuff. And so, I just wanted to get into the kayak scene. It was just something that, originally I thought we're not going to have to invest a lot of money in kayak fishing. I mean, it's a kayak, right? And now guys have like 20 grand in their kayaks. So, I just enjoy being out, fishing, and that's just what I do, and it's what I've always done. And I just enjoy it. Like I said, I've been competitive kayak fishing since about 2017 was my first tournament, I think.
It's crazy I've interviewed a couple of people this week that have had got dads that are very heavily into fishing. Does he still like to fish?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Is he into kayaking too, like you said, or is it just
No,
he's a bass boat
he
guy?
just fishes out of his bass boat, and then
Yeah.
my grandfather on my mom's side, he was a big bass fisherman. So when I would be on spring break when I was growing up, I'd go stay with them for a week, and that's what I did. I went and stayed with him for a week and we went fishing every day. That was my spring break. So just good time growing up, and if there's a minute in the day to fish and I can do it, that's what I'm gonna do.
What is your favorite place to fish? Do you have a home body of water, you would say?
I really like Sandy's growing on me. I really like
You should.
I mean, it's not. I told this story to somebody the other day, and like I said, I've only fished there like 6 or 8 times, and every time I've been there, I've caught at least a 5-pounder every time, except for Monday. Last Monday was the only day. But I would say probably Chickahominy Lake is probably my favorite place to fish. I've been to Florida a couple times fishing, with my dad. And I recently fished the Bassmaster Kayak Series down there on Kissimmee back in January. I went and fished that.
Cool.
And because Chickahominy Lake is like, so if you closed your eyes and you woke up, you think you're in Florida. I mean, it sets up the same way with the cypress trees and the tannic water and the hydrilla and the lily pads. And it's just if you're a shallow water fisherman, which is what my strength is, that's a really good place, and it's got some big fish in there.
What did you think of? Is this your first time fishing the Bassmaster event like that down in Florida, or what did you think of the experience?
That's my first year. First year fishing that series. I fished some of the KBF stuff on Gunnersville. Been to Gunnersville, fished that, fished KBF, and fished their challenge series when they had that. And but like I said, just trying to get into. I like going to Florida and fishing down there, fishing Okeechobee and the Kissimmee chain. Again, that was, like you say, to make a decision. There was 13 lakes in that tournament that you had an option of fishing.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot of decisions that you have to make, where you're going to fish. And I ended up like, I think 113th out of like 224, something like, so middle of the pack down there. It was really, really tough for me. So they only ended up like 8 fish, but didn't get a limit the second day. But it was a good learning experience. And like I said, didn't run into any, the kayak anglers are very respectful of each other from what I've seen, and just generally help each other if we can.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's something I'm really realizing about this community. They're really, really tight knit, really good guys, especially if you're a younger angler that are just trying to get into like the tournament scene. This is a really cool group to kind of get into. What do you have coming up next on the docket?
So I fished the Kayak Bass Team Series. So our tournament's going to be those tournaments are going to be starting in May, and that's a team format. So it's four anglers in a team, and it's your biggest 10 fish. So amongst the team, so those will get started in May. I believe the next Virginia Bass Nation Kayak Series is in June on the Shenandoah. So I'm definitely going to try to get up there and fish that. And I'm really liking the bodies of water that they have, and so like I said, I'll fish at least 2 or 3 more of the Bass Nation Kayak Series, and then of course I'll fish the Kayak Bass Team Series for our team, the Virginia Anglers, and maybe I'll delve into NVKBA or just something else is going on. I fish the VKAE tournaments. They're snakehead tournaments. I fished one of those, and they run a good trail. So those are good tournaments. And just if there's a tournament to fish, I'm able to go, I'm going to try to be there.
That's the other thing that's fun about the kayak fishing or the just the catch, measure, release format. There's so many tournaments that you can fish and you can double dip. That's the one thing I learned since I've dabbled in being a tournament director, where you can't double dip if you're fishing a BFL, generally speaking. In kayaking, dude, like you can, sky's the limit, honestly.
I've been in 5 tournaments at the same time, and entered one fish in the same 5 tournaments.
You know how that's awesome. Like it's just it's such a bang for your buck. And the places we go, I mean, you just mentioned it. I know for the Bass Series, it's Sandy, Briery, Shenandoah. Then you go to Chick, Smith Mountain Lake, the Upper Potomac, MVKBA, Upper Potomac. Like MVKBA's got a diverse schedule. Like it's just fun that an AOI guy for the kayak series is a very diverse angler versus if you're fishing some of these fishermen, let's just say, or any bass boat tournament trail right now where you're just fishing the Potomac River 58 times.
Right.
Okay, you're good on the Potomac, but right now in an AOI for the division that you're fishing right now or MVKBA, you had to catch smallmouth, you had to catch largemouth, you had to fish deep clear, you had to fish tidal, you have to fish everything and be good. And that's always, to me at least, it's very alluring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to be a very, very diverse angler and able to, like say, catch the smallmouth, largemouth. We've got rivers such as the Shenandoah River. Then you've also got tidal rivers like Chickahominy River that we're going to be on. You've got your reservoirs like Sandy River and Briery. So you're fishing all aspects of what's out there in Virginia.
Good stuff. Tyler, I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything we can promote or give a shout out to?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like I said, appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to seeing more of these. And I really do appreciate you getting the word out on the kayak anglers and the different series, and just giving those guys and me the some shout out, so to speak. And we just appreciate that.
No, God, this whole tribe is really cool, and it really represents the Virginia angler. I mean, the more I go to meetups and seminars and showcases, there's so many people that kayak fish. There's so many people that this is how they can fish all these different reservoirs. Virginia doesn't have a lot of big reservoirs like a Smith, but it's got a ton of fisheries like a Briery or a Sandy.
Right.
And so it really is almost kind of representative of the culture that's in Virginia. And the team kayak series is someone else I'm going to try to dabble in and promote and try to get those tournament results as well. There's also an elite John boat series that called me up too that wants to get in on it. So just not enough time in the day for all the fishing that's going on just in Virginia.
Stuff going on.
Dude, there is. It's so cool how many tournament trails there are just in this state. It's fascinating. But Tyler, no, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely we'll probably meet ways here in the future, especially with the Shenandoah event. I'll probably be poaching that one since that's in my backyard. Guys,
sure.
Link in the episode description to everything that we talked about today. Please go check out Tyler on social media. Go check out the Team Kayak series. I will put a link to that in the episode description, and also the Virginia Bass Nation Kayak group as well. If you want to, go check us out on Patreon. If it wasn't for Patreon, I couldn't do any of this at all. It's literally them that help me keep the lights on for everything that I do here. We have 10 membership spots left for 2025. So if you want to go check that out and support the channel, I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.